Hello history lovers and welcome back to the channel. Today is a very exciting episode as we will be exploring the life of the last Princess of Alderaan. This extraordinary princess helped lead a rebellion and overthrow an empire, and in her final years she was a general for the resistance while finding love and lost family along the way. But who is this extraordinary princess? Make sure you like and subscribe and let's get into the video. Princess Leia of Alderaan was born Leia Skywalker to parents Senator Padme Amidala, former Queen of Naboo, and Jedi Knight Anakin Skywalker on Polis Massa in the year 19 BBY, BBY standing for before the Battle of Yavin. Leia had a twin brother called Luke Skywalker, and Leia was the younger of the two siblings.
Luke.
It's a girl.
Leia's mother Padme had been the youngest ever elected Queen of Naboo in 32 BBY at the age of 14, and despite several political issues such as the blockade, overall had a very successful reign, so much so that they tried to amend the constitution so Padme could reign for longer. But Padme decided it was time to step down as Sheev Palpatine was elected Supreme Chancellor of the Republic. The position of Senator for Naboo became available, and as such it was offered to Padme, who took the role. However, as with her reign as Queen, her life was constantly under threat. Jedi Padawan Anakin Skywalker was chosen to protect Padme, basically as a bodyguard, and this is where their relationship blossomed and eventually led to them being married. Her mother and father had to keep their relationship and marriage a secret. Anakin became obsessed with Padme, and he was plagued with Force visions of her dying in childbirth. Desperate to try and save his wife and not lose her the same way he did with his mother, Anakin was manipulated by the Supreme Chancellor Sheev Palpatine, who was secretly the Sith Lord Darth Sidious, into turning to the dark side in order to save Padme.
He could even keep the ones he cared about from dying.
The dark side of the Force twisted Anakin's brain, leading him to brutally murder innocent children and accuse his heavily pregnant wife of turning against him and siding with his master and friend, Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Hello there.
Padme did her best to try and plead with Anakin. He force chokes her unconscious and then proceeds to have a truly epic lightsaber fight with Obi-Wan. Padme is brought on board the ship, and having seen the monster that Anakin has become, and George Lucas not wanting to break Star Wars law, resulted in Padme dying of a broken heart. So I'm glad murdering all of those children was worth it, Anakin. Oh wait, it wasn't. Anakin, meanwhile, is being brutally burnt by lava. Karma! And becomes the evil Darth Vader. He is told of Padme's death.
You killed her.
I couldn't have. She was alive. I felt it.
And presumes that his child, he didn't know that Padme was carrying twins, died with her. As such, the Skywalker twins, Luke and Leia, were separated at birth for their own safety. Leia's brother, Luke, went to go live with their paternal half-uncle, Owen Lars, and his wife Beru, on the Dust Bowl that is Tatooine. Meanwhile, Leia was adopted by Bail Organa, a work colleague of her mother Padme, and senator of the planet Alderaan, and his wife Breya, who also happened to be the Queen of Alderaan, making Leia an official princess.
My wife and I will take the girl. We've always talked of adopting a baby girl.
It was widely known that she had been adopted, and the general assumption was that she, like numerous other children, had been left orphaned by the Clone Wars. Leia herself remained oblivious to the fate of her biological parents. Leia was later told that her birth father had perished in one of the final battles of the Clone Wars, and that her birth mother had sustained injuries, living only long enough to give birth to her. Nevertheless, Leia had little interest in her biological parents, as she regarded her adoptive parents as the only family she ever desired. Leia viewed her adoption by the Organas as both a privilege and a responsibility. She understood that ruling Alderaan would demand the sacrifice of her personal freedom, dignity, and private life for the greater good. Throughout her childhood, Leia received valuable lessons from her father, and appreciating the hard work of Alderaan's labourers, she was taught about the significance of her future role as the planet's queen. Her mother, on the other hand, imparted the idea that a life of royalty could be quite solitary and isolating. Leia often stood beside her parents at Alderaan's numerous royal ceremonies, fully aware that she needed to conceal her emotions in such public settings. Leia also received guidance from several aunts who provided etiquette lessons. They emphasized the importance of her appearance and the company she kept, imparting lessons in diplomacy to handle delicate relationships. She did not want to be a docile princess whose sole purpose was to find a suitable husband. She complained to her aunts, being a princess had to be about more than silently doing one's duty. Her aunt smiled and told her that she had just described a significant part of a princess's role. In 9 BBY, Leia clashed with her cousin Niano, who said she wasn't even a real Organa. Leia retorted that Niano was insecure, but she was ultimately told by her mother to apologize. Leia instead ran into the forest, where she was kidnapped. On the planet Daiyu, Princess Organa was captured and imprisoned in a spice laboratory known as the Den. Her father, Bail Organa, reached out to Obi-Wan Kenobi for help, and Kenobi agreed to a rescue mission. With guidance from con artist Haja Estri, Kenobi infiltrated the Den, defeated Nokru and his crew, and located Leia. He convinced her of his intention to rescue her on her father's behalf. However, when the third sister learned of Nokru's failure, she placed a bounty on Kenobi, leading to a chase through the city. Leia initially doubted Kenobi's identity as a Jedi, but later witnessed his use of the Force to save her. They arrived at a spaceport, only to find it locked down by Imperial forces, including stormtroopers and Inquisitors. They were guided by Estri to a cargo port. However, the third sister arrived in the hangar and prepared for a confrontation with Kenobi. But the confrontation with the third sister was interrupted by the arrival of the Grand Inquisitor. The third sister's ambition led her to stab her superior, allowing Organa and Kenobi to escape aboard a cargo ship bound for the planet Mapuzo. As Leia and Kenobi travelled in a shuttle to their destination, Leia inquired about the Force and whether it could make their journey faster. Kenobi explained that the Force didn't work that way.
That's not how the Force works.
Upon landing on Mapuzo, they posed as farmers from Tal and used false names to avoid drawing attention. They reached their rendezvous point, but Haja Estri's contact was absent. Leia managed to convince a local named Freak to drive them to the spaceport. As night fell, they headed to the spaceport, but Kenobi sensed Darth Vader's arrival, who unleashed chaos and violence to lure Kenobi out. Kenobi decided to distract Vader, while Tala took Leia to Alderaan. Leia convinced Tala to return and help Kenobi, deciding she could reach the ship by herself. However, on her way to the ship, she encountered the third sister, who had arrived earlier and killed the pilot, taking Leia as prisoner. Leia was held captive in the Fortress Inquisitorius on the ocean moon of Nur. Defiantly, she proclaimed her status as the daughter of a senator and a princess of Alderaan, believing that she couldn't be kept there. The third sister, Reva, entered the room, accusing Leia of being a Jedi sympathizer and informing her that Kenobi was dead. Reva asked for Leia's help in locating other members of the Path, an underground network. Leia claimed she knew nothing about the Path. Unwilling to cooperate, Leia was prepared for torture. She remained defiant and vowed not to reveal any information. Unbeknownst to Leia, Kenobi had survived and joined the Path. Kenobi devised a plan to rescue her and enlist the Path's leader's help. They successfully infiltrated the fortress, with Kenobi shutting down the lights in the interrogation chamber and freeing Leia just in time. Leia was relieved to see Kenobi alive and confirmed that she had not revealed anything to the Empire. Leia and Kenobi were pursued through the Fortress Inquisitorius by a seeker droid while alarms rang. Kenobi used his lightsaber to fend off the droid and stormtroopers, and they escaped into a tunnel. As Reva and Imperial reinforcements closed in, Kenobi sealed the blast door, allowing Leia to reunite with Tala. In a desperate move, Kenobi shattered a window to flood the tunnel and facilitate their escape. The trio reached the main hangar, with Kenobi concealing Leia under an Imperial greatcoat. However, Reva and her troops caught up with them, ready to execute them. Before the Imperials could act, T-47 airspeeders attacked, creating chaos. Leia, Tala and Kenobi used the distraction to flee. They were rescued by Path member Sully Stark in an airspeeder and flown back to Jabim. On the journey, Leia offered her hand to Kenobi in gratitude. They discovered a tracker placed in Leia's droid, Lola, by the third sister. Upon arriving on Jabim, Leia aided in the evacuation efforts, opening transport doors with the help of her droid Lola after removing her restraining bolt. She understood the imminent threat posed by the Empire and the need to escape. Kenobi decided to draw Vader's attention away from the path, knowing that his personal vendetta against the Jedi would override military logic. Leia was upset that they were not staying together, but Kenobi assured her that he had a plan. He entrusted her with Tala's holster, but refrained from giving her a blaster due to being like 10. Leia concealed her droid Lola in Kenobi's robe for comfort. Kenobi confronted Vader, drawing on his memories of Leia and her secret twin to defeat his former apprentice. He left Vader beaten and returned to Tatooine. Meanwhile, Leia was taken back to Alderaan. Kenobi arrived at the landing pad. He assured Leia that her birth parents had passed down their gifts to her, and they shared a hug before bidding farewell. As Leia got older, she heeded her father's warning to stay away from Wilhuff Tarkin, and her distrust of him grew when he made an official visit to Alderaan when she was 13. She overheard a cold, intense conversation between her father and Tarkin, leading her to view him as a merciless murderer and slaver. Leia followed in her father's footsteps by entering politics and becoming a junior legislator at the age of 14, just like her birth mother Padme had. Her first trip to Coruscant at the age of 14 was a memorable experience. She flew there with her father on the royal yacht Polestar, and he pointed out the landmarks that brought legendary places to life for her. The bustling brilliance of Coruscant overwhelmed her despite growing up in palaces. As a teenager, Leia received martial art training and learned to shoot with a Defender sporting blaster pistol, a weapon often used by aristocrats. Her family deemed it necessary for her to learn self-defense due to her royal status and the risk of abduction. And considering everything we know about the assassination attempts on her birth mother, maybe not a bad idea. She found this training physically empowering and a release from the tension of her etiquette lessons. Her instructor taught her to maintain focus and a clarity of mind, something that would be very useful for Jedi training later on. On her 16th birthday, also known as Name Day, Leia experienced her Day of Demand, a significant event held in the palace throne room. She wore a traditional outfit consisting of a white dress with a cape, a silver headband with a pearl charm, and a complicated hairstyle. This occasion marked her claim to the throne of House Organa. Leia presented her challenges to her parents, Bail and Breha Organa, in an attempt to prove her worthiness to become Queen of Alderaan. Her challenges included climbing the Apenza Peak, representing Alderaan in the Apprentice Legislature, and carrying out charitable missions to needy planets at her own expense. Several senators, including Mon Mothma of Chandrila, attended the ceremony. When the ceremony had finished, Leia curtsied towards her beaming parents. However, they greeted their guests over congratulating their daughter. Leia was upset, as she took their actions as confirmation that her parents were growing distant from her. Following the Day of Demand, Leia embarked on her first mission to Wubani, where she helped the population still suffering from the Commodity Enhancement Program. After distributing supplies to the starving, Leia decided to take as many refugees as possible back to Alderaan. When she returned to Alderaan, her mother welcomed the refugees. However, mother and daughter had a private chat in the library. Breha lectured Leia on her actions on Wubani and how she has ruined the work of her father Bail, Mon Mothma, and their allies in the Senate to negotiate the relocation of the Wubani population. Continuing her humanitarian efforts, Leia travelled to one of the moons of Naboo and met with Queen Dalnay at the secondary royal palace, aiming to address the issues caused by the strikes among the local mine workers. She also had a meeting with Brel T. Vaughn, a representative for the miners, during which Leia provided 500 sets of essential supplies, including safety belts, atmosphere masks, portable force fields for the air purification, and other safety equipment. Unfortunately, T. Vaughn informed Leia that they could not accept the supplies, as their Imperial overseers had been seizing their equipment and profiting from its sale. Leia, infuriated, arranged a meeting with Moff Quash Panaka to discuss the mining issue. Queen Dalnay joined her, and Leia changed into the traditional Naboo jubilation dress, typically worn for special occasions and meetings with officials. When they arrived at Panaka's chalet, he was taken aback by Leia's striking resemblance to the late Queen Padme Amidala, with whom he had a close relationship. Leia's attire, which was previously worn by Amidala to celebrate Naboo's liberation from the Trade Federation, astonished Panaka as he spilled his tea in shock. Panaka expressed his determination to identify the responsible Imperial officials and inquired about Leia's birth parents. Leia revealed that she was adopted and knew very little about her biological parents. This revelation prompted Panaka to consider the possibility that she might be the Queen's daughter. Leia felt confused and uneasy about his questions and left the chalet with Queen Dalnay. Shortly after their departure, a massive explosion destroyed the office, killing Panaka and injuring Leia and Dalnay. Leia witnessed a miner in a breathing mask fleeing the scene, and stormtroopers quickly secured the area and provided medical assistance to the two women. Upon returning to Alderaan, Leia attempted to investigate her parents' involvement in Panaka's death, which greatly angered her father. However, her mother Breya explains that the bombing was the work of an extremist group known as the Partisans, led by Saw Gerrera. Breya clarified that Bail was hesitant to support a large-scale rebellion, drawing from his experiences during the Clone Wars. In 3BBY, Leia served as her father's aide in the Imperial Senate and devised a plan to help the rebels. She posed as part of a relief mission on Lothal. Upon arrival, she encountered Kanan Jarrus and Ezra Bridger, who were disguised as a stormtrooper and an Imperial cadet, and Lieutenant Yoga List, who implemented stricter security measures. These measures included gravity locks on the ships and two AT-AT guards, complicating Leia's plans. Leia requested to use List's shuttle, and accompanied by Kanan and Ezra, went to Ryder Azadi's hideout. There, they found that stormtroopers had captured Ryder. The Ghost crew arrived, and Leia, Kanan, and Ezra pretended to be taken hostage by Ryder and his crew. On board the Ghost, Leia and Ezra bonded, with Ezra revealing his doubts about the rebellion's worthiness. Kanan and Ezra, still in disguise, used the Phantom to escort Leia back to the depot, distracting List. Meanwhile, Ryder, Sabine Wren, and C-110P, or Chopper, disabled the gravity locks and commandeered the ships. When Ezra boarded the last corvette, Leia instructed him to stage a struggle and stun her. List came to her aid, and Leia berated him for his supposed failure before requesting a shuttle to return home, taunting List for his loss. Leia eventually assumed her father's position in the Imperial Senate, becoming the youngest senator ever elected. Her aunts and the press expressed doubts about her abilities, the press claiming she was a princess playing dress-up and not a real politician, with some suggesting she should focus on finding a suitable prince for a husband. In preparation for her role, Leia intended to confront Emperor Palpatine directly and voice her concerns. She was presented to the Emperor by her father on Coruscant alongside other newly elected officials. However, her encounter with the Emperor left her speechless and fearful due to his menacing presence. Leia also crossed paths with Darth Vader, the Emperor's apprentice, although neither were aware of their biological relationship. During her early days in the Senate, Leia learned that betrayal often came from those who appeared the friendliest. She eventually joined the Rebel Alliance, viewing it as an opportunity to make a difference in the galaxy. This decision came shortly before her mission to Tatooine. During the Galactic Civil War, Princess Leia Organa volunteered for a critical mission to transport the plans for the Death Star against her father's wishes. Her father, Bail Organa, reluctantly allowed her to go, but requested that she seek General Obi-Wan Kenobi on Tatooine after intercepting the plans. The original plan was for Admiral Raddus to escort Leia to Tatooine, but his ship, the Profundity, was diverted to the Battle of Scarif once the fighting began. The plans for the Death Star were successfully obtained by a rebel squadron called Rogue One and beamed to the Profundity. They were copied onto a data card before the ship's squadron was massacred by Darth Vader and Imperial forces. The data card was handed off to a man named Toshma Jeffkin, who boarded the Tantive 4, detached from the Profanity, and set a course for Tatooine with the plans. Vader began tracking the ship, issuing an arrest-on-sight decree for Organa. Leia was personally handed the data card carrying the plans by Captain Antilles, who asked what the Rogue One squad had sent. She replied with one word: hope. Soon Leia learned that their impaired hyperdrive was causing an energy signature that the Empire could track. The ship's weapons and shields were also barely functional due to the attack on the Profundity. With the crew looking for Leia for guidance, they realized that Darth Vader was pursuing them. Close to Tatooine, their ship's motivator failed, forcing them to rely on sublight speed. However, their ship was intercepted by a Star Destroyer before reaching the planet. Leia, with the data card in hand, hastily stored it in an astromech unit, R2-D2. R2-D2, along with protocol droid C-3PO, left the ship in an escape pod to Tatooine. The droids would eventually encounter Leia's twin brother, Luke Skywalker, and Obi-Wan Kenobi, who was now an elderly man who goes by the name Ben, and delivered the princess's message.
Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope.
At this point, Vader had boarded her ship and force-choked Captain Antilles. Leia was spotted by a stormtrooper and was hit with a stun blast. She was then handcuffed and brought in front of Vader. When questioned about the plans by Vader, Leia pleaded ignorant and was taken aboard Vader's Star Destroyer to be interrogated. Princess Leia Organa was taken to the Death Star and placed in detention block AA-23. Despite her status as an Imperial Senator, which should have granted her diplomatic immunity, she was imprisoned. Organa was locked in cell 2187 and attempted to find an escape route. Darth Vader, who believed she was affiliated with the Rebel Alliance, returned to her cell with an ITO interrogation unit to extract information about the Rebel base. Leia was subjected to a truth serum that caused painful hallucinations, but refused to reveal the base's location. After the interrogation, Grand Moff Tarkin threatened to destroy her homeworld, Alderaan, if she didn't reveal the base's location.
What?
In an attempt to save her people and the Rebel Alliance, Leia falsely confessed that the base was on Dantooine, which had been the Rebel base prior to Yavin 4. Tarkin believed Leia's lies, but didn't hold his end of the bargain, and so he fired the Death Star's super laser upon Alderaan, revealing his deception. Princess Leia was forced by Darth Vader to watch as her entire civilization and family was annihilated. She could only pray for a miracle while silently apologizing to her father. Her parents, Bail and Breya, died without even knowing she was on the Death Star above them. After the planet was destroyed, Leia was taken back to her cell by stormtroopers. She felt emotionally devastated and utterly alone. Leia recalled her father's voice, and her only hope for justice lay within the memory banks of a droid she had sent to Tatooine. Leia's brother Luke and Ben had hired smugglers Han Solo and Chewbacca to provide passage to Alderaan. Upon learning of Alderaan's destruction, the group who were in the Millennium Falcon were captured by the Empire, forcing them to plan an escape. When they infiltrated the base, they found out that the princess was a prisoner on board, and Luke convinced the others that they must save her. So Leia pretty much just chilled in her cell until Luke came and saved her. Leia was thoroughly underwhelmed by her saviours. Their escape route was cut off, so Princess Leia took matters into her own hands.
What the hell are you doing?
Somebody has to save our skins.
As they tried to escape from the Death Star, Leia and Luke got separated from the rest of the group by stormtroopers. They found themselves at a dead end over a chasm, with stormtroopers closing in. Luke used a grappling hook to swing them across the gap, and they rejoined Han and Chewbacca. Meanwhile, Obi-Wan Kenobi engaged in a lightsaber duel with Darth Vader, and sacrificed himself to ensure the others could escape. The group, now including Leia, made their way back to the Millennium Falcon, piloted by Han Solo. They had to fend off sentry fighters and escape from the Death Star. Upon reaching the rebel base on Yavin 4, Leia delivered the Death Star plans to the rebellion. Upon arriving at the Yavin moon, there was little time for mourning Alderaan's destruction, as they quickly analysed the data within the astromech droid. Meanwhile, the Death Star entered the Yavin system, ready to fire on the moon. Despite morale being low amongst the rebel pilots due to the overwhelming odds they faced, Leia praised Luke Skywalker for his skills and helped him join the Alliance's Starfighter Corps. They discovered a critical flaw in the Death Star's design. A direct hit on its thermal exhaust port could destroy the entire station. The rebel pilots prepared for the Battle of Yavin, flying X-Wing starfighters. Leia arranged to pay Han Solo the reward he demanded for rescuing her and allowed him to leave, despite Luke's objections. She remained in the Alliance's command center as red, gold and green squadrons engaged in the Death Star. The battle was intense, the TIE fighters picking off rebel pilots. However, Luke managed to destroy the Death Star just in time, preventing it from firing on Yavin 4. Leia and the others celebrated their victory. Following the successful destruction of the Death Star by the rebel pilots, a ceremony was held on Yavin 4 to honour the heroes, as Princess Leia waited for the ceremony to begin. She couldn't help but feel the weight of her loss after Alderaan's destruction. With her parents and her planet gone, her path had changed, and she would never become the queen they had prepared her to be. However, she remained determined to lead in the rebellion. Leia, dressed in an Alderaanian gown, presented medals to Luke Skywalker and Han Solo as they were celebrated as the heroes of the rebellion. She took a moment to ask for silence to honour those who had perished when Alderaan was destroyed. The celebration was brief, as General Dodonna announced the need to evacuate Yavin 4, now that the Empire was aware of their location. After the celebration on Yavin 4, Leia changed into a less luxurious outfit and sought an audience with General Dodonna to offer her assistance in scouting for a new rebel base location. However, Dodonna believed she should take the time to grieve her recent loss, given the Empire's bounty on her. He dismissed her and suggested she wouldn't leave Yavin without a full military escort. Leia continued to assist in the evacuation and met rebel pilot Evan Verlaine, who informed her about the Empire's pursuit of surviving Alderaanians. Realizing her people's dire situation, Leia enlisted Evan and R2-D2 to help her on a self-imposed mission to save the survivors. They escaped Yavin on a T-1 shuttle, and though they were pursued by Luke Skywalker and Wedge Antilles, they managed to outsmart them and land on Naboo. On Naboo, they posed as Imperial auditors and landed on its capital, Theed. While there, she came across a mural of the late Queen Amidala, who, unbeknownst to her, was her biological mother. And for a moment, Leia thought she saw the image's head turn to look at her, but soon dismissed it. She encountered Lord June, her old friend, who helped arrange their meeting with Mul Sanaka, the owner of Club Deja, and the employer of the Melodic Order, a cloister of Alderaan musicians they were seeking. However, Mul Sanaka attempted to capture and kill Leia, but their escape was aided by Uwa Paris, the leader of the Melodic Order. Leia convinced the Melodic Order to join her mission, and they relocated the Solace to a luxury yacht provided by Lord Jun. Approximately 3 years after the Battle of Yavin, Leia Organa played a role in overseeing the construction of Echo Base on the ice planet Hoth. During this time, she encountered Kez Dameron and Shara Bay, who became trapped while carving an ice tunnel. After their rescue, Leia emphasized their value as fellow rebels. Amid the challenging conditions at Echo Base, Leia delivered a speech about the importance of perseverance. "Listen, I know we've all been spread pretty thin, but we've made it through. It's okay to feel tired. It's okay to feel weak. It doesn't erase the hero I see in each and every one of you. While we wait for better days, remember, you're not alone. The day we forget we have each other is the day we lose." She also learned to ride Tauntauns properly during a patrol with Han Solo and Hera Syndulla. When Chewbacca went missing, Leia and R2-D2 searched for him and encountered a Wampa. Leia's quick thinking helped save them as they closed the door on the Wampa's cave. When Luke Skywalker went missing during a patrol, Solo set out to find him on the Tauntaun Mura during the night. The next morning, Sentica located Skywalker and Solo, and Leia was relieved when they returned to the base. However, the arrival of an Imperial fleet, alerted by an Imperial probe droid, forced an evacuation. Leia helped coordinate the evacuation, giving instructions to pilots and signalling the ships to leave the planet. As the Imperial ground forces overran the base, Leia, along with C-3PO, escaped Hoth aboard the Millennium Falcon with Solo and Chewbacca. The Millennium Falcon, with a damaged hyperdrive, sought refuge in an asteroid field to escape the Imperial blockade. Inside the asteroid, Leia helped Solo repair the ship, leading to a passionate kiss between them. However, their moment was interrupted by C-3PO.
"This is why we can't have nice things."
As they shooed away Minox outside the ship, they realized they were inside the belly of an Exegorth. They narrowly escaped the creature's clutches and were pursued by Imperials once again. Unable to jump to hyperspace, they landed on the back of an Avenger, an Imperial Star Destroyer, and later detached to make their way to the mining colony on Bespin, owned by Solo's acquaintance, Lando Calrissian. Unbeknownst to them, they were being tracked by Boba Fett, a mercenary hired by Darth Vader. Upon arriving at Bespin, Leia and her companions were greeted by Lando Calrissian. Leia was initially skeptical of him, but accepted his offer to repair the Millennium Falcon's hyperdrive. They stayed at Cloud City, not realizing that Lando had made a deal with Darth Vader to betray them. Vader captured Leia and her group, intending to use them as bait to lure Luke Skywalker. They were brought to a carbon freezing facility where Han Solo was to be frozen in carbonite as a test for trapping Luke Skywalker. As Han was lowered into the freezing chamber, Leia expressed her love for him, to which Han responded with, "I know." On their way to Vader's ship, Leia spotted Luke Skywalker and tried to warn him, but she, Chewbacca, and C-3PO were captured by Imperial forces. Lando Calrissian later betrayed Vader by helping the rebels escape. They tried to save Han Solo, who had been frozen in carbonite, and was being taken away by Boba Fett, but when they arrived, it was too late. During these events, Luke had a lightsaber duel with Vader and learned that Vader was his father.
No, I am your father.
After rescuing Luke, the Millennium Falcon was pursued by TIE fighters, but they managed to escape. Leia was still upset with Lando for his earlier betrayal. She comforted Luke, who chose not to reveal that Vader was his father, and they returned to the Rebel fleet. Leia and the Falcon's crew engaged the TIE fighters, and with their help, the 4th Division and Green Squadron managed to escape. Leia later met with Commander Grek to discuss the Empire's ability to track their communication codes, and their need to find and contact other Rebel cells without using those codes. She suggested using Operation Starlight to connect with other cells and gather strength against the Empire. Leia Organa, along with Lando Calrissian, Luke Skywalker, and R2-D2, returned to Cloud City to help Luke recover his lightsaber. While there, Leia studied the carbon freezing chamber and learned how to operate the decarbonization sequence. However, she was discovered by a stormtrooper and stunned, and subsequently frozen in carbonite. Later, Luke Skywalker freed Leia and other prisoners who were also frozen in carbonite. Leia took the lead in fighting the stormtroopers from the Imperial garrison and led the prisoners to escape aboard a Centennial-class landing shuttle. Leia Organa, along with Chewbacca, went to Jabba's palace to collect part of the bounty that Jabba had put on Han Solo's head. Disguised as Boushh, she demanded 50,000 credits for Chewbacca's release. Jabba agreed to pay 35, and Chewbacca was taken away. Later that night, Leia released Han Solo from his carbonite coffin and revealed her identity. They were caught by Jabba and his court, and she was imprisoned as Jabba's slave. The next morning, Luke Skywalker arrived at the palace to negotiate for his friend's release, but Jabba refused and dropped Luke into the Rancor pit. Luke survived and killed the Rancor. Leia was spared from execution, but had to accompany Jabba on his sail barge to the Great Pit of Carkoon, where her friends were to be executed by the Sarlacc. During the journey, she waited for the right moment to strike. When Luke Skywalker initiated an attack, Leia strangled Jabba with the chain he had used to enslave her. She destroyed the barge's controls, and with the help of R2-D2, freed herself and her friends. They drove a skiff to safety, just as the sail barge exploded. Leia Organa joins the Rebel Alliance's fleet for the assault on the second Death Star in the Endor system. During the briefing, she volunteered for the ground assault to deactivate the deflector shield protecting the space station. Upon landing on the moon of Endor, Leia and her team encountered Imperial scout troopers. She and Luke Skywalker pursued them on stolen speeder bikes, but got separated, and when she was thrown off her speeder, Leia was awakened by an Ewok named Wicket, whom she befriended. They managed to evade other scouts with Wicket's help. Leia accompanied Wicket to Bright Tree Village, where the Ewoks initially mistook C-3PO for a god. After some misunderstandings, the Ewoks accepted them as part of the tribe. Later, Luke revealed to Leia that Darth Vader was not only his father, but also hers. She had always sensed this truth and somehow known that Luke was her brother.
Are you sure about that?
The following day, Leia fought alongside her friends in the battle at the shield generator. She was injured during the battle and confessed her love for Han Solo. With Chewbacca's help, they managed to destroy the shield generator, allowing the Rebel fleet to destroy the second Death Star. After the Battle of Endor, Leia Organa felt her brother Luke's presence through the Force, reassuring herself that he had survived. She and Han Solo shared a kiss and disclosed their relationship to each other. The Rebel Alliance joined them at Bright Tree Village on Endor to celebrate their victory. Later, Leia tried to prevent the Ewoks from eating captured stormtroopers and arranged for food rations from General Hera Syndulla. 2 days after the Battle of Endor, Han proposed to Leia, and they had a small wedding ceremony in the Ewok village temple. Leia wore a green dress. Only those trustworthy were invited. This included Mon Mothma, Lando Calrissian, Chewbacca, C-3PO, and it was officiated by Luke Skywalker. The wedding was not publicly announced. During the service, Skywalker asked for a moment of silence for those who could not be there in person. Leia thought of her parents. The couple then left for their honeymoon, which turned into a battle with Imperial forces. After the Battle of Endor, Leia Organa Solo began her Jedi training under the guidance of her brother Luke Skywalker. They trained on Asian cloths, and Leia eventually constructed her own blue-bladed lightsaber. She honed her lightsaber combat skill and became proficient enough to spar with Luke, occasionally outmatching him. Leia also practiced meditation with her brother and developed a basic understanding of the Force, which allowed her to levitate herself and sense other sentient beings. Luke provided her with insight into how the Force worked, including its ability to offer visions of the past, future, and communicate with the departed. Leia's training showcased her quick learning and adaptive capabilities, and Luke noted that she was a fast learner. Leia decided to end her Jedi training due to her visions and a strong sense of another life calling her. She had a vision that her unborn son would die if she continued down the Jedi path. On the last night of her training, she dressed with her brother, and during this time, she conveyed her decision. Leia gave her lightsaber to Luke as a symbol of her choice not to complete her Jedi training, and asked him to pass it on to a promising student in the future. While she ended her formal Jedi training, Leia cherished the moments that she had spent with Luke and continued to apply what she had learned to her daily life. She went on to serve in the Galactic Senate of the New Republic, drawing upon her Jedi knowledge and ongoing learning throughout her years. Han and Leia had 3 children, twins Jason and Jaina, and another son, Anakin. Her brother Luke married a Force-sensitive woman named Mara Jade, and they had a son called Ben. And the family tussled between the light and dark side of the Force. And it was pretty awesome. Jason even lost an arm.
Again, it's like poetry, so if they rhyme.
But unfortunately it's no longer canon, and the Skywalker solos didn't get to keep their family. Instead, Luke became a hermit, and Han and Leia only had one son, named Ben, who was underwhelming at best. Han and Leia would divorce.
What?
Her son Ben pretty much became a pathetic Sith wannabe who killed Han, then Luke, and nearly Leia. And Leia's ship got blown up, and Leia used the Force to save herself from the vacuum of space.
That's not how the Force works.
But it took a toll on her health, and then she died. And that's it. I'm not going to spend any more time on the sequel trilogy, because if I did, then I would spend more time on my video than what the producers at Lucasfilm did for the entire trilogy. I hope you enjoyed this April Fool's video. I will be resuming my normal historical content from next week, so make sure you like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you in the next one. Have a wonderful day.